So, welcome to the World Tour of Meditation. Our purpose here is to share tools, real tools, that can help you really access deep peace, calm, and joy. And today I'm so thrilled to have Jacob here. So, Jacob Liberman's been teaching meditation for over 40 years, and he's fantastic. And he's an expert on light and how light unlocks states of peace within us. Is that right, Jacob?
That's part of it, but that's a really good beginning.
Cool. Well, I can't wait for the rest of it. So when we spoke the other day, honestly, I was so taken by, and I've already shared this with friends of mine, I was so taken by your 1-minute toilet meditation.
Well, meditation, most people think of it as an exercise or some technique that you do because you want to achieve something. Meditation allows us to directly experience who we are. It allows us to remember, reconnect with our essence, rather than what happens with most of us out of our conditioning is that we are lost in the interactions with the outside world.
Yeah.
And we think that life is our interaction with the outside world because we've been led to believe that that determines the choices we make and what we do in the world. But that's actually not the case. It may be that we choose absolutely nothing in our lives. Because if you look at very current science about who's making these choices, that we're sure that we are making consciously, you begin to realize that 7 to 11 seconds before you think that your, quote, free will has decided to do something, your brain is already moving in that direction. So when you look at these studies, and they're gold standard science studies, real good studies,
That's scary.
You begin to realize that our humanity is much broader than anything we can conceive of. And that what is guiding us, literally guiding our heartbeat, our breathing cycles, and our movement through life is exactly the same animating force that's guiding the planets, the tides, the change of the seasons, and so on. It's exactly the same thing. We look at Mother Nature and we realize we don't control anything there. Having been a physician and a scientist, the one thing you recognize very early in your career is that there's nothing within our physiology that is designed to initiate action. Everything within us, and I mean everything, is designed to respond. What is it responding to?
And how is that different from initiating action?
Because something is moving us. So in other words, we're not beginning the action, we are responding to an invitation from the animating force of life. So just the planets do not move because they wake up in the morning and the moon says, I think I'm going to take a slightly alternate route today. The planets move because something is moving and guiding them on their journey. Just as every cell in the body has a job. It doesn't have a choice, it has a job. Heart cells pump, fat cells eliminate fat or store fat, and so on. Just as every cell has a job, every human being, like a different tree in Mother Nature, has a certain nature and a job to fulfill that goes with it. And so the animating force of this universe guides each of us through the steps we must take to fulfill our reason for being. And having been in the vision care field, the way that epiphany came to me is that we're led to believe that the eyes are looking for things, when in fact the opposite is true. Light is looking for the eyes, and the eyes do not move toward anything until something catches them. This is why we say, "It caught my eye." But we never discuss what the it is. And the it is the animating force of life. Why am I sharing this? Because when we think that our purpose is just interacting with the outside world, we forget that something is guiding this process. And that guidance is coming from a source. The same source that is guiding one thing is guiding everything. When we are in a state of meditation, we come into direct contact with that source. Because prior to that state, we believe that we are our bodies. We believe that I am a male or a female. We believe that we have certain preferences in life. I'm Catholic, I'm Muslim, I'm Jewish. My skin is light or somewhere in between or darker. Well, that's the way we identify ourselves. But, you know, when we come into the world, the reason that it was stated that infants live in oceanic bliss is because we come into this world with no preferences. An infant has no sense of gender, religiosity, food preferences, or anything. An infant does not even recognize that it is separate from its mother or father. So this state of no preferences is actually called enlightenment. It's called bliss. And we are hardwired for this state. It's not something we have to attain. We come into this world in this state. And this is why the great sage Sengsten, who was the third Zen patriarch, about 1600 years ago, wrote this magnificent piece called the Sin Sin Ming. And the first verse really describes it exactly. He says, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, the world is clear and undisguised. Make the slightest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, hold no opinions for or against anything." Now, what's fascinating is in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said the same thing in a slightly different way. He said, when up is down and down is up, when the outside and the inside are the same, when you see a man as a woman and a woman as a man, then you shall enter the kingdom. The kingdom. So what they were saying, both Sengsten and Jesus, is that experiencing a state of no preferences is not only the way we are wired when we enter this world, but it's the state whereby delightment occurs. We experience a delight in life, a place where there are no problems and no solutions. So let's come back to meditation. because it's directly linked to this. We think we're our bodies, and we think that the thing that moves our bodies and decides what to do in life is something we call the mind. And we all identify with it, so we say it's my mind.
And we identify with our personality.
What's that?
And we identify with our personality and our fears.
Right, all of that, which is the contents of the mind. And we say, well, we can change our mind. And we can do this and we can do that. But meditation is a very unique activity because the first thing you recognize in meditation is that you are not the contents of the mind. You are that which is noticing the activity of the mind. Meditation is the state. You also can get it during certain states of dreaming. People have experienced this with psychotropic kinds of drugs and so on. But nothing is as beautiful as something as simple as meditation. You don't need drugs. You don't need a specific diet. You don't need a guru. You don't need to give up everything you have. You close your eyes, and within a few seconds, you begin to notice activity. You're aware of something in your chest expanding and contracting it, both the heart and the respiratory cycle. You're aware that your buttocks is sitting against the seat and the back of your chair, and you notice the sensations associated with that. You notice muscle tensions and muscles that are relaxed. And then every so often, you notice some activity in the mind that you call thinking. And at first, you say, oh, my meditation is all messed up because I'm not able to quiet the mind. Well, anyone who's meditated realizes that you're never going to quiet the mind. There's nothing you can personally do about the activity of the mind. Any doing feeds it. It's sort of like if you have a dog at home and you sit down at the dinner table to have your dinner, and your puppy comes up and smells the food and starts making little noises and jumping up on the chair because he or she would like a little handout. And so if you give it a handout, within a few seconds, it wants another handout and another handout. And if you don't give it a handout and say, no, Sparky, Sparky interprets that as my owner is playing with me. So whether you interact with it in what we think of as a positive manner, I give it food, or a negative manner, no, Sparky, they both achieve the same thing. Any interaction with the dog achieves the same thing. If I merely acknowledge the puppy, I touch its head, and I come back to my meal, within a few seconds, the dog just goes away or sits down. Any interaction feeds it. So when you interact with the mind, whether you interact with it in a way that you call positive or negative, the impact is the same. Either way, it nourishes the mind to become bigger, louder. In meditation, you have
What do you mean by positively interacting with the mind if it's not meditation?
If you start talking with the mind,
Oh,
That's one kind of interaction.
so like positive affirmations, right? You're doing a good job.
Positive affirmations or just interacting with the mind. If the mind comes up and you change the subject, you do something else to try to not pay attention to what you're already paying attention to, the same thing occurs. What's beautiful about meditation is that in meditation, you get to observe this. You get to notice how sometimes you begin to interact with it. Each time you interact, that reminds you to come back into the seat of your essence. And after a while, you begin to develop the ability of noticing without interacting. Because the essence is very different from the mind. The mind talks. One's essence speaks with no words. It is continually providing guidance, but it comes as a spark of inspiration. There's no voice, there's no entity from my experience that's saying, do this and do this. It's just a field of awareness that notices from no point of view, no preferences. The more we identify with our essence, the more we recognize that what we call God is not something out there separate from us. Godliness and our source is one. Each of us is a little spark, a holographic focal point of light. That Bible says God is light. Each of us is a holographic focal point of light. That is our essence. And so when we experience that, we not only experience our essence, we experience that we are not separate from the divine. We also experience something very different. The only thing that our essence produces is inspiration. Inspiration provides a seed in the garden of our awareness that grows into the directive of our life's purpose. The mind interacts with the inspiration by helping to bring it forth into the world. But most of the mental activity is not inspired by the source. Rather than inspiration, it's activity that comes out of desperation. What meditation allows us to experience is listening. It's not doing, it's being, and in the being, receiving the guidance for whatever action is required to fulfill our life's purpose. There's really nothing to think about. It all comes free of charge. Ralph Waldo Emerson said it beautifully. He said, there's a principle underlying all things. It's a simple, undescribed, undescribable presence residing silently within us. He then goes on to say, we're not here to do, but to let do, not to work, but to be worked upon. So what Emerson is saying is the principle that underlies everything, what we call God or the creative force, is something that is simple that you cannot describe and resides silently as a presence within us. It's not the thing that talks, it's the silent place that notices the talking, the chatter. And then when he says we're not here to do but to let do, not to work but to be worked upon, he's essentially saying everything we think we have to do actually gets done free of charge. Because if, for instance, you heard a loud noise, would you have to think about whether to move? Or would you find yourself reacting automatically? It's automatic. When we receive an insight, an epiphany, an inspired something, the process has already occurred. If we just allow it, the body will just go through whatever motions it needs to bring forth.
So, Jacob, that sounds really nice. And sometimes I experience that and it's amazing. But then sometimes I'm really inspired. And then, like, the next day I'll be all worried about, oh, I have to do this. Or I'll start being, like, fearful of, God, I didn't reply to so-and-so. And, like, my mind, like, I come from a place then motivated by fear or by inadequacy. And I guess, like, what I heard you say in the beginning, like the part about there's nothing in our body that isn't already being moved. Well, what about the parts of me that are like scared or like hesitant or holding back or honestly wanting to go like hide under the covers?
Good. That's a very beautiful question. So let's speak about that. A few moments ago, I mentioned that when an infant comes into the world,
Right.
It has no preferences. Yes? How do preferences develop? So let's use an example. Let's imagine that, see, an infant never does anything. When an infant cries, it doesn't do something to cry. Crying comes forth because of discomfort. It's just an expression of discomfort. When an infant has to urinate, it doesn't think about anything. Just a natural process occurs. But as you know, when you get to a certain stage, we have to train you to live in this world. So one of the places we train you, we call it toilet training. So the young child begins to urinate or defecate in its diapers, and mommy or daddy says, oh, no, hold on to that a second, and picks it up and brings it and sits it on top of the little infant seat on top of the toilet, and then sits there and essentially is trying to guide the child, training it to do that in the toilet. So what it means is one of two things. Either the child learns how to control or hold on to its bowel movements, or the other thing can occur where the mother or dad says, you better go to the bathroom before we leave because we're not going to stop once we start driving. So in one place, you're having to hold this natural function, and the other place, you're having to push out this natural function when it's not ready. So this is just one example. We are conditioned from the time we come into this world. If you're uncomfortable and you start to cry and you're in a public place, your parent may pick you up and rock you up and down like a bottle with something in it. Not so much to just let you know everything is okay, but to in some way let you know that you need to stop crying. You need to control the pain, the feeling, the discomfort, the fear, whatever it is. Just as Pavlov's dogs were conditioned to salivate. I don't know if you're familiar with those experiments, but essentially Pavlov was a psychologist. He took a group of dogs, and every time he was going to bring out the food, he rang a bell.
Okay, yeah.
So every time a bell rang, the food was coming, the dog salivated. Once he did that for a while, then he started to ring the bell but bring no food. The dogs couldn't stop salivating. Their brains had been conditioned to salivate, even though there was no food. That hardwires our system. That creates new neural connections through the process of neuroplasticity that builds in almost automatic kinds of reactions. So all the activity that you mentioned in the mind is an accumulation of experiences in this lifetime and experiences by your predecessors that you have been genetically endowed with, that have been going on since the beginning of time, which are all part of who you are today. You're the present state of evolution. So you will never know exactly where the conditioning has come from. So trying to change that through some technique in the mind is sort of a strange kind of activity, because it's like shooting at a target that you can't see.
And that could be a technique, like trying to motivate myself or trying to, like,
Yes,
hack the system. So like I get out of bed to brush my teeth and do something on the way, all of that.
essentially. So conditioning is something we all are dealing with. We've all been conditioned to be how we are. When we're in the process of conditioning, we recognize something very early. Our actions are either met with acceptance or rejection. And rejection is not as nice as an experience as acceptance, as being accepted. So we develop this mechanism inside, which we call mind, which basically is looking at everything that goes on and trying to determine in each moment, what do I have to do to make sure that I'll be okay? To make sure that I'll be successful? To make sure that he or she will find me cute or beautiful? To make sure that I will get a passing grade, even if it has to do with cheating to do that. Most everything that goes on inside is cheating. We call it thinking because thinking sounds very intellectual, but it's really almost totally worrying. And the worrying is our attempt to orchestrate our actions so things come out our way. We want to be successful. We want to be cute. We want to make money. We want to manifest. We want to create our own reality. So we are continually planning inside exactly how we exploit the world in order to do that.
Which is all cheating.
Versus what?
Which is all cheating.
Exactly. The problem with that, and we've been conditioned to do that, that's why it's present in everyone. The problem with that is that it leaves you with the false belief that you have to work, that you have to plan ahead, that you have to think ahead, that you have to do all these things, or else you'll fail. But if you have an instance where you jump into life empty-handed. Then what occurs is you have an opportunity to experience your genius. So let's talk about what a genius is. When we think of a genius, we think of Einstein or somebody with a high IQ, but the word genius means guiding spirit. It's essentially the guidance which comes through our essence, through source, and moves us through life. And so when we don't plan, when we live life without a net, all of a sudden we begin to experience this genius of life, this miracle where things just occur. And we don't know how they occur, but we end up where we need to be, meeting who we need to meet. And all of a sudden we become very humbled. We don't, quote, become enlightened and wear orange robes, or claim that we've awoken, or that we create our own reality. The opposite is actually true. You get so deeply touched because you realize that it has nothing to do with us. And it's a humbling experience. So those that have this experience, they're not claiming special gifts. You don't hear much from them. They're very humble. They're just deeply, deeply, deeply touched. So the process of meditation is really to reconnect us and remind us that life can be effortless, that life can be peaceful, because rather than doing, you're merely noticing. And in the noticing, you notice that inspiration comes not from you having a good idea, but comes from the source of all that is and comes free of charge. And that inspiration creates a very favorable rumbling within us where we don't have to think about should we or shouldn't we. It is our life's directive. It is the guiding force. It is what moves us. It is what causes a tree to be the kind of tree that it is. And, you know, a pine tree may find a guru, go to India and meditate for 50 years. It could become vegan, it could do yoga, it can do all kinds of things, but it will never be a palm tree. No matter what it does. The same is true for us. Each of us is a certain kind of tree. It's called our nature. We already are who we're supposed to be.
Even when we're stuck in our minds and running around in circles.
When we are stuck in our mind, over time, it becomes so burdensome that eventually it brings us to have this conversation. So even the process of conditioning that keeps us entangled and tangled within the web, the mind field called mind, that's also our ticket out. That's also the awareness that becomes curative. That's part of our awakening. So it's not about quieting the mind or changing the mind. This is just from my perspective.
It's beautiful.
it's about just discovering that you're the observer. You're not the mind. And so as soon as you realize that the mind is out there, just like your little puppy is down here, and when you realize that you are this essence, not that activity, then there's less and less interaction with that. And because it isn't being fed, it gradually becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and softer and quieter and further away. It's almost like when you first uncover this, you're in a surround sound theater that you can't escape. But when you begin to recognize who you are, which is the gift of meditation, somebody starts to move the speakers further and further away. And after a while, believe it or not, you notice that there's very little going on up there, because you realize what catches your eye is actually looking for you. It's not just something accidental. When light catches the eye, it causes the eye to move toward it. The body then reorients itself, and that instance of connection with the light, which is both what we think of as light and also the light of God. And by the way, light is invisible. So what's catching our eye is not what we perceive as brightness. It's an invisible essence from which life emerges. When that occurs, when that connection happens between what the guidance that catches our eye and the eye meet, that instance is presence. Presence is not an activity that you work at, that you have to become more of. Presence is a passive process of at oneness with that which is calling to us. Nothing to do, no need to be present. Be present means work at it, concentrate, attend.
Seems so effortful. Seems so effortful.
Right. Yeah. And that effortfulness is called stress. And that stress is responsible for about 90 to 92% of what we call disease, which begins as dis-ease. And so one of the processes is to notice what moves us from ease to dis-ease. And when we can begin to see that, then we're able to gently move from dis-ease back to ease. So it's a process of discovery. And meditation is not a technique. It's a sparkle of our life. It's a spark that allows us to realize that there's something there that's far, far greater. And as I shared with you before, I basically have been sharing with people for 45 years or so how to do little 1-minute meditations. And it's very simple. they say to me, well, what technique do you use? I don't use any technique. Well, what do you do? I don't do anything. Well, what is it? It's simple. I close my eyes and I just noticed. So when I open my eyes in the morning and I'm still in bed, after my eyes open, I close my eyes again, and now from a more awake level of awareness, I notice. And what I notice very obviously is that my body keeps expanding like a balloon. It's just a balloon that keeps expanding and then contracting. It took me years to discover that that movement is going on everywhere in this universe. Everything, including the earth, is continually expanding and contracting. So something is breathing us and breathing this universe. And that movement is entrained into us, something I call the frequency of wellness. So I just noticed that. Then a thought comes up. And it took me a while, and then I realized every time a thought came up and I identified it as my thought, I noticed that this expansion and contraction stops in its tracks. Every thought, every attempt to make something happen is a dam in the river of life. When a river is flowing, it's never dirty because everything is always moving. But if you put a dam in a river, where the dam is, all the garbage will collect. All the sediment, everything that's in the river collects at the dam. Every time we identify as the thinker of the thought or work at something, we halt this frequency of wellness in its tracks, creating a dam in the river of life, the flow. And what occurs is any toxicity within us, from the air we've been filtering, the food we've been eating, the thoughts we've been identifying with, that sediment collects somewhere in the body. Because we are habituated to this process of worrying continually, in fact, we're addicted to it. It's the biggest addiction in the world. There's a lot of physical problems because there's a huge amount of toxicity within us that is never filtered out by the natural process of life, because we're continually, through this process, building small little dams. And then the flow that we think of when athletes have these exquisite levels of performance or incredible insights, the flow is segmented. And so rather than the body flowing, it starts to stutter. And that stuttering is called anxiety. So I close my eyes after I've awoken in the morning, and for whatever period I'm there, I don't keep track of anything. I just notice. And the process of noticing is exquisite because noticing is different than doing. We've been led to believe that if you want to get something done, you have to do something. In fact, that's not the case. You merely have to see it, and the process begins effortlessly.
What do you
So
mean?
this is why I say awareness is curative. When we notice through this field of awareness, the guidance that is required for the next step of our life's journey comes free of charge, gets us out of bed, and moves us where we need to move. It occurs by itself. To give you an example, during the day, people say to me, someone said to me recently, what do you do to get in the flow? And I said, I don't do anything. Well, how do you get into a flow? I said, the flow is our natural state. There's nowhere to get to. I'm always in the flow. So if you came into my house, you would notice something. Every time I use a dish, I don't put it in the sink. I don't put it in the dishwasher. I've never used a dishwasher, as a matter of fact, ever. I wash it, I rinse it, I either put it in the strainer there, the drainer, or I just dry it and I put it away. And most of the time I dry it and put it away. I clean the counters, and then I notice the next thing that's calling to me. I don't prioritize anything in my life. When something comes, that is the moment. The sun never rises late and never sets early. The timing of this universe, timing is everything. The timing of our life and the things that enter our awareness are given to us by the same source that times the rising and setting of the sun. That's why they say God makes no mistakes. So notice what's catching your eye. It takes work to interfere with the natural response that takes care of it. It takes work to prioritize. It takes work to say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I have no tomorrow. If this is the last moment of my life, everything is done. There's no one I have to call. There's no bill I have to pay. There's no one I have to send a text to. There's nothing to do. Everything is always current. That's a different kind of meditation. That's when one's life becomes their meditation. And when one is following that guidance, something is continually moving me from morning to night and then puts me to bed. Now, that may sound like some philosophical idea, but it is absolute fact of physiology. Everybody knows that our eyes interact with light, and it allows the eyes to see. Not only to see, but to know when I have to push on the gas, when I have to put on the brake, how much I have to turn the wheel, where the ball is in relation to my hand. In other words, light interacting with the eyes allows us to notice what has to occur to meet life in each moment at a very high level of efficiency, because the universe is perfectly efficient. So is the running of our bodies. So when people think of light, they think of eyesight, the eye, and so on. Well, the body has trillions of cells. All of them have eyes. And these eyes are designed to detect light and to respond to light. And they're designed to detect and respond to single photons of light.
Like actually? Like actually?
Like actually. Which means that our body is functioning at the quantum level of reality, at the speed of light, literally. Why do our cells receive this guidance continually? So that we can continually meet life in each moment. What we call, oh, I had a feeling. Oh, I had an insight. You didn't feel anything. You became aware of the guidance that the 100 trillion cells in your body receive, but you became aware of it way after the fact. The reason, if you look at an animal in the summertime, its hair is usually short because it's warmer outside. As the seasons begin to move from summer to fall and then to winter, as the light is changing in the sky, every microsecond, it's triggering each of those cells to modify its internal function, continually synchronizing itself with Mother Nature so it could be at one with life. One night when the bear goes to sleep and wakes up the next morning and the snow is falling, the bear doesn't say, oh my God, I forgot to go to Costco and get my overcoat. It already has its overcoat on.
Nor does it think, oops, I don't know how to shovel.
Exactly. It already has what it needs to be with the snow. All of that is happening unconsciously. It isn't unconscious because we need to make the unconscious conscious. It's unconscious because the inner workings of this universe are in that realm of the unknown. They're in the realm of the unseen. I don't want that to sound spiritual. You see, when you look at a tree, if you saw a tree for the first time and someone said, that's a tree, and then if someone later said, have you ever seen a tree? And you'd say, yes, I saw one today. What is a tree? Well, it's like a piece of wood or something that starts at the ground and then goes up toward the sky. Well, that's because when the person saw that tree, they didn't realize that 3/4 of the tree can't be seen. It's underground. It's called the roots. All living things have roots that are in the unseen. Those roots stabilize our life, just like they stabilize a tree. They nourish us, just like they nourish a tree. So what we call spirituality, which sounds sort of like a new agey term, it's really no different than the roots of a tree. If we can speak about it in everyday terms like that, then everyone can agree. Oh, of course. All living things have that. The human body also has roots. They call it the biofield, the subtle body, the aura. But the aura sounds like something new agey. But the biofield is a real scientific thing. You can measure it. So when we begin to use these terms, and if we can explain things like meditation in ways that actually describe what's going on as we spoke about it, it takes the mystery out of it. And it puts the excitement into it. It's, oh my God, I had no idea. So 1 minute meditations, the 1 minute meditation that I said I start when my eyes open in the morning, they're the very last thing when I get into bed at night. They occur every time I go to the bathroom. I don't stand up. I sit on the toilet. I close my eyes. And as long as I'm there, I'm noticing. Maybe before I eat. Some people like to pray. I just close my eyes and I notice. If I'm in the car and my wife is driving, I notice. Eyes open or eyes closed. It doesn't make any difference. I can notice either way. The idea is to begin with the eyes closed because it's easier that way. And then gradually it begins to impregnate everything in your life. And those little moments here and here and here start occurring all the time. And then earth becomes heaven.
Wow. And that's actually not extraordinary. That's quite ordinary, you're saying.
It's actually, it is the extraordinary part of ordinariness.
You know, I'm really struck by so much of what you said, but there's three things that jump out to me in particular that I find very beautiful and that I'm curious about. I'm also aware that we're a little bit past the time, so let me know when you need to.
I'm here.
Thank you. One of them was what you said about the speed of light, right? And like that every cell in us is actually picking up photons. And what that made me think is like from a physics perspective, when a photon is traveling the speed of light, when anything travels the speed of light, it doesn't age even a millisecond in time. It's
Right.
always in the present moment.
Right.
And that kind of made me think like sort of
the physical eyes can register one photon. One single photon. That's a scientific fact. Now, you see, light has a very interesting behavior. Wherever light is traveling to, it always takes the shortest route. We say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Light follows that law. So if you look at animals in the wild and they have to get somewhere, they never take the long way. They automatically take the shortest route. When you see a dog on the beach and somebody throws a frisbee, something in the dog takes the shortest route so they catch the frisbee. That's because their entire physiology is functioning in the same way light functions. Why? This universe and everything in it is actually materialized light. That's why David Bohm, the theoretical quantum physicist, said all matter is frozen light. That's why physicists say the ground of reality, that from where everything emerges, is the energy of light. That's why spiritualists call consciousness light. That's why the Bible says God which is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, is light. If you look at the behavior of this invisible essence, this formless essence called light, it behaves as if it is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. So spirituality, religion, and science converge at exactly the same point. Doesn't make a difference how you look at it. They're not different things. It's all the same thing. And everything in this universe is run that way. So how silly is it for us to think that we have to think to decide what to do when everything else in the universe is functioning at the speed of light? What a silly idea.
Which brings me to my second question.
Yeah.
Why is worry so addictive?
Well, you see, why is worry so addictive? You see, we're sold from early on. We're told. See, you're too young to know this, but you'll. When I was a kid, one of the expressions that you heard all the time was, "The mind is a terrible thing to waste." And things like "think ahead" and so on were common terms. I used to be a competitive sprinter. As a competitive athlete, there's no time to think. There's no time to think, because when one is in the midst of action, there's no time.
Wow.
No time. Everything just is. So we have a system that is functioning at the quantum level of reality that we are trying to control with our thoughts and our ideas of what we should do or not do. So it's like taking a Maserati and saying, "Lee, you can only drive it 10 miles an hour." You would wreck the car. The car would break down because it's not designed for that. So what happens? Our vehicles break down because we're continually interfering with the fact that our maximum potential is all we have. In each moment, each person is as evolved, as present, as everything as they can be. No matter what they do or they don't do, in each moment, we meet life with everything that we have. And that happens without us. We cannot be more than we are in any moment, and we cannot be less than we are. Wow. Interesting.
More than
You should try harder. Well, maybe in the next moment, you meet life differently, but in each moment, what occurs is what occurs. In life, there isn't a take two.
And any thoughts that we have about a take two, or any thoughts that we have about trying more, that's just trying to drive a Maserati at 10 miles an hour.
That's all the conditioning that we have about, well, how do I get there faster? Well, what do I have to? Everybody asks the same thing.
Oh, you're not at your potential. How do I work better? How do I show up more fully? How do I?
Let me give you a beautiful example for your listeners today. Today was the first time we ever saw each other, right?
Right.
We never saw each other before. We had a brief conversation before, but today was a new conversation. You didn't call me up and say, "Listen, Jacob, what questions should I ask you?" So you'll know exactly what to say. Even if you said that to me, I wouldn't share anything with you because I don't want to know in advance. It takes the surprise out of it.
And even if I'd wanted to prepare it, I couldn't have done that.
Right. So you showed up with your totality in San Francisco or wherever you are, and I'm in Maui, and I showed up with my totality, and we looked at each other, and we were both smiling and excited. And out of that smiling and excitedness, somewhere in the process, we both merged. And when we merged, it wasn't Daksha and Jacob having a conversation. It was, in one moment, God was using Daksha as God's mouth and using Jacob as God's ear. And in the next moment, God was using Jacob as God's mouth and Daksha as God's ear. Neither one of us was speaking. Neither one of us was listening. The whole thing, to use a common term today, was being channeled. But there's no entity channeling, let's put aside all that silliness. What we're speaking about is life breathing us. It was living us, and something magnificent occurred. Somewhere early in this conversation, you forgot you were there and I forgot I was here. You forgot who you were, I forgot who I was. The two of us became one. And even if I showed up before our talk and I had a backache and you showed up because you had financial worries and family is visiting, which in fact you said family was visiting, somewhere early in our conversation, any memory of your family disappeared, didn't it? And anything that was going on in my body disappeared. And the fact that I'm having shoulder surgery in a couple days, everything disappeared. And the only thing that existed was bliss, or let's call it different. The only thing that existed was contentment. And in that contentment, there wasn't two of us, there was one, and there were no problems and no solutions. And even though you didn't know it and I didn't know it, the words funneling through me were causing your heart to go, thank God I'm home. And the words coming through you were causing my heart to go, thank God I'm home. And where we found ourselves was in the state that people called enlightenment. But no one was doing anything. No one was trying to become anything. We just were having fun, like kids do. We just merged into a state of loveliness. And in that state, everything else just occurred by itself. That's the way it happens in life. We merge with whatever's calling to us. We disappear, it disappears, and all there is life making itself. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Was there one more question? I think you said 3.
There was one more question. It seems like a reach to feel it now. But I might as well, since I brought it up.
Yeah.
You said something akin to create anything in life. You don't need to do anything or something like that. All you need is to be able to see it. What did you mean by that in the language that you do?
First of all, you can't create anything in life unless it's yours to create. So if something inspires us, then we're inspired. The natural thing that comes out of inspiration is a movement, because we're so excited, whether I'm inspired because I fell in love or whatever, I'm in love with whatever is inspiring me. I cannot not do that. In fact, I don't have to do anything. I'm just there. So seeing the inspiration, not as an idea I had. Oh, I had a great idea. We don't have great ideas. We become aware of them after they come to us free of charge.
Is that like the 9-second thing that you said?
Yes, the moment we think we've come up with a good idea, we're in trouble. We're merely the recipients of the inspiration. So when we see it, when we become aware of it, what's curative about it is it takes us as an individual out of the picture. We realize that, oh my God, this is happening without me. There's nothing to do. You know, when Buddha had his awakening, at some point shortly after that, he realized he had spent his whole life trying to get there, but there was nothing to do. That was the first thing. The other thing that happened with Buddha, which was important, is that after his awakening were some of the most difficult years of his life. Why am I sharing this with your audience? We have this fairy tale mentality that we're going to live happily ever after. That once we get it together, we'll never get sick, we'll never have financial problems, relational issues will disappear. We'll always get the parking lot, the parking space in front of the health food store, you know, all of that. That's just silliness. When we awaken to some of the things that we've been speaking about, that awakening in many ways requires that we peel off our skin. We become inseparable from the world, both the joy of the world and the pain of the world. You feel everything. You're not immune from anything. You're connected to everything. That's why I think someone once said, no one's enlightened until everyone's enlightened. Because you're connected with everything. No one escapes life without getting sick at some point, at many points. No one escapes life without feeling the loss of a loved one, either through death or through separation or divorce or whatever. No one is happy when they go to the doctor and they get an unexpected diagnosis. No one can let go in those moments. Letting go is nothing that we can do. Letting go occurs by itself. So a lot of what happens in our life, a lot of the pain that we experience is because we live life according to ideas. And that mentality does not match up with reality. And so we become successful at everything except living. Some point in life, you begin to realize that the only thing that matters is health and happiness, and you can't be healthy without being happy. And happiness is sort of an everyday term for contentment. It's contentment that we are searching for. Nobody has it 100% of the time. Not Buddha, not Jesus, not Ramana Maharshi. Nobody had it 100% of the time. You know, we think, oh, they're enlightened, they're in a blissful state all the time. My sense is that that isn't the case. I think what allows us to access these states is that we realize we're all the same height. We all experience pain, and none of us are comfortable with pain. We all experience loss, and none of us are comfortable with loss. When we realize that it doesn't make a difference who we are, we have our version of the same experience. And none of us escape life without these things. So we're all in the same boat. Thank God. Because then we can meet and realize we're not alone. And I share this because we need to get clear that we're not alone. You know, that just as you have worry, I have worry. Everyone has worry. The problem is not the worry. The problem is thinking that you or I am the worry. When we begin to realize we're the observer of the worry, then the worry is there, but we worry less about it. And then it gets less and less and less.
Exquisite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope this has added something, and people can receive some source of inspiration.
I'm sure people can receive some source of inspiration. At the very least, I've received so much inspiration.
Me too. This has been so much fun.
This is great, Jacob. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, can we talk about something else for a moment?
Absolutely.
Your eyeglasses.
My eyeglasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often? You've been wearing them a long time, right?
Since I was 7 years old.
Uh-huh. And you're how old now?
29.
29. So 22 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what the prescription is in them?
Mm-hmm. Roughly about minus 6.5, minus 6, and then minus 1.25 astigmatism, minus, or not, I don't know, minus, but like 0.5, 0.75 astigmatism.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a bit less.
So you could do an experiment. You could talk about how you could order a pair of glasses that is a little bit weaker than what you have on. Not so weak that you'll say, oh my God, I can't see. Just a little weaker that some part of you will go, ah. It just softens things. And it might be interesting for you to see what you notice as things are softer. You might notice that you actually like them softer. You might notice that after a small period of time, you might be seeing just as well as you see with the stronger ones. And then maybe we soften them again. Just a couple things to consider.
And I'm not likely to get migraines if I do that, am I?
No.
Okay.
No. No. Migraines are caused for the opposite. Not that things are softer, but things are harder. We don't want to make things harder. We want to make things softer. So something to consider. We can speak about it another time.
I'd love to. I have been meaning to get a new pair of glasses because I'm not sure if you can tell, the anti-glare coating on these is all splotchy.
Yeah, maybe you don't need the coating.
Another way to soften?
Yeah, maybe you don't need any coatings.
Okay.
Of any type.
How much softer would you go?
Well, I don't know that right now.
All right.
We have to have a little conversation about that, and
Great.
we will get some guidance on exactly how to do that when the time for that conversation comes up. Do you wear contacts or just glasses? Do you wear contacts as well or just glasses?
I do wear contacts as well, but I just haven't found an optometrist in the US yet.
And you're in, where are you in?
I'm an hour south of San Francisco. I'm in Cupertino.
Cooper City.
Yeah.
And were you wearing, so you have contacts or not?
No. I have run out of contacts. My last set of contacts I purchased was about a year or 2 years ago in Scotland.
And they were soft contacts?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do much prefer wearing contacts because I get the peripheral vision.
Right.
And I feel like, I just feel a bit more expressive when I wear contacts.
We'll talk about this. I can help you with this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this. Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned to you, I also got to interview for this Ray. Yes, I think I did tell you.
Yeah, Ray is a dear friend of mine for many, many years.
Yeah. Gosh, she's lovely.
Oh, he's terrific.
And do you know Melissa? Oh, yes, of course you know Melissa. She introduced us.
Yeah.
And do you know Meir Schneider?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So you've spoken to all those people.
So what you said about being in a place at a time, I work weekends at East West. It's a metaphysical bookstore in Mountain View.
I did a book signing there.
You did?
Yeah, last year, March, maybe February or March of last year.
Oh, cool.
2018, excuse me.
So Mayed was doing a book signing when I was working the front desk, and we hadn't set up a table for him, so he's wondering where the table was. And I didn't know anything about his talk, honestly. I just saw how he interacted with the people around him, and I thought, wow, I really would love to interview you for this. There's something about the way you're interacting that's just so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so I spoke to him, and then he introduced me to Ray and Melissa, and then I met you. Like, what you say about timing?
Interesting chain of events.
From a book signing at East West.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Great.
Well, it's lovely to connect with you today, and I'm going to let you get on to your next whatever.
And you.
And I send you much love and a big hug. And
oh, I feel it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And sometime soon we'll talk again about
I would love that.
Things to do with your vision and so on. Very simple things to do, just like changing the glasses slightly just to see what happens.
Okay. Great.
Love you.
Thanks for the surgery, Jacob.
Thank you. It's going to go perfect.
It's going to go beautifully.
Yes, it is.
How could it otherwise?
Absolutely. Well, we'll speak soon, and good luck. I hope you were able to contact some of those people.
Thank you. I'll follow up with that.
Good. All right. Mwah. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lots of love.
Send me that information also for the... Good. All right. We'll take
care. I'll do that tomorrow, if that's okay.
Great.
Great. Thank you, Jacob.
Bye.
Bye.